All right, we are continuing on Pythagorean theorem, which is what we talked about yesterday. So we are on page 43 of our journal. Okay, and we're just going to title this Pythagorean theorem practice. Okay, Pythagorean theorem practice. All right, so let's go we're going to start on the left of page 3, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually, in class we're getting printouts, so if you are a student coming back to class in the next day or two, you can hold on and get in this. You'll just have to ask for it. But if not, we're going to draw them, but leave some space over here because this is where we're going to work it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and draw this first one. Actually, I'm not going to draw them. I'm going to go ahead and use them. So what I want you to do is this is the 4 triangles that are going to be on the left side of our journal. And I'm going to pause that, and I want you to draw those 4. Be sure to include, they are a right angle, so that needs to be, that right angle symbol needs to be done correctly. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get it copied down. While you trace, I'm going to remind you of a few things. Pythagorean theorem only works on right triangles. Doesn't work on any other type of triangle. We use it to solve for a missing side. We've already worked on solving for a missing angle. And now we are working on a side. There are 3 sides to a triangle. There is side A and B, which doesn't matter. They're the 2 smaller sides of the triangle. And then there's C, which has a special name. It's called a hypotenuse. And it's side C, and it's our longest side, and it's across from the right angle. So this is used, those are really good test questions, really good fill-in-the-blank test questions, really good shrimp box questions. But so be sure that we know those facts. They were all things that are on page 42. Okay, if you need more time to draw these 4 triangles, then I need you to pause the video now and push play when you are ready. If not, we're going to go ahead and get started on them. All right, so the first thing we're always going to do is you'll notice that we don't have sides labeled A, B, C. So I'm going to start at my right angle. I'm going to draw an arrow to the side across from it. I'm going to label that as C. That is my hypotenuse. It is my longest side. The other 2, it doesn't matter. One is going to be A, one's going to be B. It doesn't matter which one you choose for A. It doesn't matter which one you choose for B. So it is a right triangle, and I'm trying to find the missing side, so I can use Pythagorean theorem. All right, so A squared is going to be 9 squared plus B squared, which is 4 squared. And then C squared, I'm going to keep as C because I don't know it. So we have 81 plus 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, 16. This is 97. Okay, but I want to know what C equals. I don't want to know what C squared equals. So to undo C squared, we're going to do our square roots. So I want you to turn to page 3 of your journal. Sorry, I'm going to get one of the other journals because I started a virtual journal not at the very, very beginning. So go to page 3 of your journal. And you'll notice that that is where we started our square and square root. We talked about that the opposite of a square root is to square a number. The reverse of that is the opposite of a square number is to do the square root. So we have our squares, we have our square roots. We even on the right side did some practice of finding our square roots. So that should not be new to you. That should be something we have already covered this year, and it's on page 3 of your journal. All right, so that's page 3 of our journal. So to undo this, I need to do the square root of 97. And the square root of C squared is just C, because C times C gives me C squared. Now, square root of 97 is not a perfect square. I know this because 10 squared is 100, That's too big. So 10 was too big. Now you go down to 9. 9 squared was 81. So I know that this square root of 97 is going to be somewhere between the 9 and the 10. And it's going to be a decimal, so it's not a perfect square. So we're going to leave it as a square root. Next year in high school, you will learn how to simplify that even more. All right, let's look at our next one. All right, we have a right angle. So I'm going to draw an arrow. I'll label that side as C. My other two sides, it doesn't matter, A and B. It is a right triangle. I am solving for a missing side. I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little better. So I'm going to do my A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared, so 6. B squared, I don't know, so I'm going to leave this B squared. C squared is 12 squared. So 6 times 6 is 36. B is a variable, so I'm going to keep it. 12 times 12 is 144. So this is a little bit different. Last time we just added those two numbers and we were done. Well, we were almost done. Sorry. This time is a little bit different. I can't add 36 to B squared because I don't know what B squared is. So I need to get rid of that and subtract from both sides. This cancels, leaving me with B squared. Let's see. 108. All right. To undo the B squared, I need to do square root, which is B. If I do it to the left, I have to do it to the right. And 108, again, is not a perfect square. Now, if you don't know if 108 is a perfect square or not, we do have our perfect squares listed on page 3, but you can also use a calculator for that. All right, so let's look at the next one. Here's my right angle. Let's draw an arrow and label it as C. A and B, again, it doesn't matter if you did A and B differently. I don't care. It is a right triangle, so I get to use A squared plus B squared equals C squared. My A squared is 9 squared. B squared, you can put it as the X if you want, but I like keeping it as B squared. And C squared is going to be 14 squared. All right, so 9 squared is 81. So I was getting a calculator for 14 squared. 14 squared is 196. Subtract 81 from both sides. B squared is going to equal 115. And you do the square root. Square root of B squared is B. Square root of 115 is just going to be 115 because it's not a perfect square. We have a lot of them. Most of them are not a perfect square. You're going to get a lot of square root answers. All right, let's look at another one. This is confusing because it labeled our angles for us, but we don't care, so we're going to draw a line. This is going to be my side C and my side A and side B. If it helps you, put an X through those because they actually might confuse you. I could see how they would. It's a right triangle. We're trying to find our missing side. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 4 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. Do what I can. 4 times 4 is 16. 12 times 12 is 144. This time I don't have to subtract because I already have my pieces both on the side. 4, 5, 6. To undo a C squared, I've got to do the square root, which is C. Square root of 160 is not a perfect square, so we're going to keep it as that. Alright, if you need extra time, pause the video and push play when you're ready, but if not, we're going to slide to the other side. And again, I'm going to put up the 4 triangles that we're going to be doing on this side. See if I can get them all to fit on the screen at the same time. Let's do 2 at a time. So we're going to have 4 triangles. There is the first 2. So I want you to go ahead and get those copied down. You know we're going to have 4 triangles, so leave room for 2 more at the bottom. As always, if you're having questions about this, please let me know. I can always do a Zoom call with you if you're stuck on something, whatever it takes. Okay, if you need more time to copy those 2 down, please pause the video now, because I'm going to go ahead and slide up and show the next 2 for people who are ready for those 2. So go ahead and pause the video if you need more time. All right, there are our last 2, and please copy them down exactly as they are, including the right angle symbol, the angle measurements, everything. All right. Give you a little time to get those cut down. All right, if you need more time to copy those down, please pause the video. I feel like that's probably been enough time. All right, so let's go back to these top 2. And I want you to, on your own, label your A, B, and C sides. So go ahead and do that. All right, so hopefully you drew an arrow and labeled this as C. And it doesn't matter your A and B. So if you did it, your A and B different from me, that's okay. So we're going to write our formula. It's a right triangle. We are trying to find a missing side. So I want you to plug it in. So plug in your A, your B, and your C. I'll give you a minute to do it, and then we're going to talk about it. All right, so hopefully you plugged in 5 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. I want you to go ahead and finish solving this problem. I want you to find out what C equals. If you need to grab a calculator, grab a calculator. All right, so let's look. 5 times 5 is 25. 8 times 8 is 64. My C is already over here by itself. That's good. So this is 89. Square root of C squared is C. Square root of 89 is not a perfect square, so it stays as square root of 89. All right. I want you to go ahead and label the next one A, B, and C and do the plug-in. But I want you to pause this video and push play when you have labeled and you've plugged in. Okay, labeled and plugged in. Go ahead and pause and push play when you're done. Hopefully you pushed pause and are practicing it. Guys, if you are just copying down the video, that's not going to help you at all, I promise you. Okay? This is a concept that you're going to see later on in other grades, so you need to be sure that you are practicing this on your own. So when I give you those times, be sure you are. I know I've already had quite a few students tell me they don't do that. Here's my right angle. They didn't have it marked, but we're going to assume that it was because we're solving for a missing side. There's my equation. My a stays as a. My b is 9 squared. My c is 12 squared. So I want you to go ahead and solve. So pause the video, and I want you to finish solving. Tell me what a equals. And then push play when you've done that. All right, so hopefully you solved 144. My a is not by itself, so I have to subtract 81 from both sides. So I'm going to do 144 minus 81. And I get 63. Square root of a squared is a, and 63 is not a perfect square. So it's going to stay at 63. All right, the next one has a little confusing thing. It has an angle. Well, if we're solving for a side, that angle doesn't matter. So we're going to pretend, mark it out lightly because we are going to refresh solving for an angle because some people are still struggling with that. But I want you to solve this one from beginning to end. So I want you to label your A, B, and C. I want you to write your formula, plug it in, and then I want you to figure out the missing side. I want you to push pause right now, and when you're completely done, let's push play and go over it together. All right, so hopefully you actually attempted this one. So again, they labeled my angles. I don't like that, so I'm going to mark them out. This is my C. It already has it labeled. That's my A, so this is my B. So I'm going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. My a squared is 8 squared. My b squared is b squared. My c squared is 10 squared. So 8 times 8 is 64. 10 times 10 is 100. My b is not by itself, so I need to subtract to get rid of that 64. Which is 36. Square root of b squared is b. Square root of 36 is equal to 6, because it is a perfect square, and we do need to simplify it if possible. So that's the first win we've had today where the numbers turned out pretty. But yes, square root of 36 is 6. All right, last problem, and you're probably going to need a calculator for it because it does have a little bit bigger number. That is an 1812. I want you to label your A, B, and C. I want you to write your formula, plug it in, and I want you to solve. I want you to push pause, and I want you to push play when you're done with that. Hopefully you attempted this and didn't just rush through that or just waited for me to go over it. C is always across from a right angle. A, B, doesn't matter. So my A is 12 squared. My B is B squared. My C is 18 squared. 12 times 12 is 144. Sorry. On days that I teach all day, my throat gets really dry. 18 squared is 324. B is not by itself, so I need to subtract 144 from each side. And I get b squared equals 180. So I'm going to do the square root of that. Now, if you don't know it, this is the calculators we use in class. I know that most of you aren't familiar with it because you haven't been at school to use the calculators. Well, some of you haven't. So we're going to do the square root of 180. And when it turns out to be a decimal, because they're usually decimals, that means it's not a perfect square. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to leave my answer as the square root of 180. On Tuesday, we're going to look at whether it's true or false, whether it is a right angle or whether it's not a right triangle. We're going to go through that. And then next week we'll have homework over this, and then we're going to have a test over missing sides and missing angles. Speaking of missing angles, let's look at this one. This angle right here is 90. So I have a 90-degree angle. I have a 53.13 angle. And then I have an unknown, so I'm just going to leave it as, I'm going to put an X for it. And 3 angles together equal 180. So I'm going to add those two together. 90 plus 53.13 equals 143.13 plus X. I'm going to subtract that 143.13 from both sides. Sorry, messed up on my typing on my calculator. And I get that that missing angle is 36.87. I had some really crazy angles, so I want to talk about, does that make sense? Well, this is an acute angle. It's a small angle, and that's a small angle. It's below 90. I had some people give me angles that were in the thousands. I had some people who gave me angles that were 180. If you always want to check it, add those 3 angles. This angle, the 90, plus the 36.87. Remember, a triangle has 3 angles, so I have to do all 3 sides. All right, if you have any questions, please send them my way. If not, you'll have a good weekend.